Hello, and welcome to the Seasons Leadership Podcast, where we are committed to working together to make excellent leadership the worldwide standard.
We are going deep into specific leadership topics to help leaders make progress on their leadership journey. You can learn more at seasonsleadership.com.
Hello, everybody. Our topic today is a big surprise for everybody, leadership. But it's about excellent leadership and a tool that we're very excited about that can help leaders be more excellent. It's not hard to use and it feels like magic, but it's really not. So let's start with our podcast and our Seasons Leadership business are all about excellent leadership. So let's start with defining what leadership is. Leadership, or our definition of leadership, is the ability to inspire and motivate people to action.
To take it a step further, Debbie, excellent leadership is a way of being, doing, and serving that inspires and motivates people to act positively toward the greater good. That I just love that because it really does capture why leadership is so important to us.
Absolutely. And so what does a leader have to do, right? They have to create relationships. If you're going to inspire and motivate people, you have to create relationships as part of that. And then they have to set the right direction and priorities for the people that they are leading.
I think I'm guilty of this, but many people are, and that is using leadership and management interchangeably. I find myself doing that, but it really is a disservice because they are two different things.
Yep.
Leadership is all about people, and management is all about processes or activities.
Yeah, and you need both, right? Management is the process of focusing on, dealing with, or even controlling. That can be a bad word, but it's not in this case, activities and processes, because you need to have your processes in control. Managers plan, they organize, they direct, they coordinate, they measure, and they control. So they have lots of activities they're doing as well.
Daniels College of Business at Denver University defines the difference this way, and I really like this. Leaders align people with the mission, while managers organize and staff. Leaders monitor motivation, while managers monitor performance. Leaders set the company's direction, while managers detail how to achieve the company's direction.
Yeah, that last line is really the one that gets me, right? So you can almost imagine visually a leader standing up going, "Okay, we need to go this way," setting the company direction, and the managers are going about, "Okay, here's how we're going to do that. Here's how we're going to go the way the leader said," right? And Peter Drucker said it very succinctly, and I love his line on this. Management is doing things right. Leadership is about doing the right things.
I love that too. And honestly, we believe that leadership and management are necessary for success, both. And it's not two different people, right? A person can be a leader and a manager at the same time because they have to, especially if you have a small organization. It's both. But it's understanding both and not over rotating in either the leadership place or the management place.
Yeah, and really having an awareness of when you are switching hats, right?
Yes.
Almost visually representation. Okay, now I have my leader hat on. Now I have my manager hat on. And for us, now I have my coach hat on, right? But it's when you're switching between these different things, knowing what the difference is between them helps you keep from blurring the lines so much, right? And to be successful, especially today in a fast-paced, rapidly changing environment, leaders and managers each or both need a common system, that tool I mentioned at the beginning, that communicates to everyone in the organization how leaders and managers are expected to do their job of guiding and sustaining the organization, and how both leadership and management is exercised throughout the organization. We call this, ready to be blown away, a leadership and management system.
We need a drum roll for that.
Yeah, we do. We do.
Yeah, and the leadership and management system documents in visual format the process for leading and managing the organization. And this is really important because there's transparency to it. Everybody in the organization knows what the leadership and management system is. It's not a secret.
No, and anytime that someone does have a question, the person being questioned can easily point to it and say, okay, we're in this step right now, or we're in this part of the system. And they can easily answer the questions because it covers everything done in the organization.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's probably going to look different. Like if you led an organization and I led an organization, our leadership and management system might look a little bit different. But here's a really big tip for all you leaders out there. It should contain these elements: your vision statement, where the organization is headed, what it intends to be, or how it wishes to be perceived in the future. Your mission statement describes the organization's why or purpose. Susan, you can go through some.
Okay, your values, how leaders guide their behavior, what the expected behavior is based on your values, and the operating principles and practices. They guide how people will work together aligned with the values.
And that's really important, working together aligned with the values. So it's not
Mhm.
something separate, but it melds quite nicely into
Yes.
there. Also, it should identify your stakeholders. Who are the people or groups that have a stake in your success or an interest in your success? And finally, my favorite part, processes, the series of actions or steps taken in a set order to achieve a particular outcome. This is the part of the visual representation of the system we talked about, where you know what steps you're walking through and they're always consistent. And in this case, the particular outcome is to lead and or manage the organization.
Right. We believe that one of the most important things a leader can do right from the start is to establish their leadership and management system, starting with the values and operating principles and including all the elements we just mentioned.
Yeah, it's critical to the success of an organization. And that's especially true, like I said before, in these chaotic and turbulent times, which occur, let's face it, very often in any business environment. It's critical to have a system that you can go to and it's consistent and what's expected of you.
Yeah. And it's not just for the leader, but it's for everybody in the organization. It really is a grounding force that if everybody has that in common, they know what to do, what to expect. There's
Yeah.
the environment may cause some surprises, but the leadership and management should cause no surprise.
And Susan, I thought what we might do today, if you're game for it,
Mhm.
is we might describe a couple different stories we have of where we've benefited from or had experience with a leadership and management system.
Sure, I think it's a great idea.
Okay, you want to start or you want me to?
Okay. Well, I'll start. So I really learned how to do this and honed my skills while I was at the Boeing company, but I've also applied it in other circumstances, in smaller businesses, into a startup. We did it there, so it was a startup, and I don't know how many people have been in that environment, but it is something else, right? There is we might have stated roles, but then really what happens is everybody does everything because it's moving very fast,
Mhm.
and it's fun because of that, and it's exciting and it's innovative, and but if you don't have a leadership and management system, it's chaotic and you don't actually get anything done. There's a lot of activity without a lot of progress. So what I was able to do was instill a leadership and management system. And so we started working with the BPR. We've talked about that before. And we started on a rhythm so we could establish what are we here for? What is our vision? What is our mission? How are we going to do this? What are our values? And then starting with a cadence on our processes, what's most important, and how are we going to measure it, and what's our schedule, and all of that. And then we started working with our BPR on a weekly basis, and we were able to make as much sense out of the chaos as possible and keep making progress.
And I imagine in those situations you found yourself, that there were a lot of people doing what they thought were the right things
Mm-hmm.
before you implemented the system, right? All trying to do good things with good
Yes.
intentions
Yes.
to help the organization. But even if I'm doing something with greatest intentions and you're doing something with greatest intentions, our brains work differently. So unless you have that common thread of that system telling you what to do and how to do it, and when in a lot of cases,
Yes.
right? You're the chances of you landing on exactly the same thing are slim.
It,
But once you have that system in place and everybody, I mean, it can be a little chaotic rolling one out for the first time, lots of questions, but once people get it, what it's intended for to be used, um, man, it's like night and day, the difference.
it's
And I love
true.
that you mentioned the BPR in there too, because the BPR was part of the leadership and management
Mm-hmm.
system that you put in place, right? Not
Exactly.
something separate.
Exactly. It encompassed everything. And you're right, Debbie. The working at the startup, it was exciting. I was working with really creative, motivated people.
Yeah.
What the leadership and management system does is it puts structure to that creativity. And you're right too. Not everybody is totally happy about it, just because they're used to like going with their creativity. But once they realize that putting the structure in, it starts to create a momentum where things start to progress and they can start to see results slowly at first, but then it grows. So they may be working on things that, maybe they don't like it. Like, I don't want to work on my schedule right now. I want to work on creating my engineering drawing. But the problem is, we need to know what the schedule is in order to tell our suppliers and all of that, how to fill in on it. So, but once it starts to be successful and gain that momentum, people start to get excited because they see results.
Well, something that just came up for me when you were talking about that is with that example is you may have people, no matter the size of the organization, that are just involved in a very specific part of the organization, of what the organization
Mm-hmm.
does. And so having this common leadership and management system enables them to see how their little part fits into the greater whole
Yes.
of the organization, and that they can feel like they're a part of something special, but also that helps them understand why they get asked for certain things at certain times.
Yes, yes, it totally is true. It is because every person plays a really important key role, whether they see it or not. So this kind of helps connect the dots for them.
Yeah. And there have been all kinds of studies that when people feel more connected to the direction of an organization, the vision and mission, that they are more motivated
Mhm.
individually.
It's
So it's a
true.
great motivating factor when you can have something understandable in place for everybody that visually
Yeah.
represents what the expectations are. I love that.
It's totally true. It was really fun. It really is kind of magical, the progress you can make once you get this in place and get everybody all going on the same train, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know what example I expected you to bring up, but I'm going to ask you about another example
Okay.
because we need to talk about this one. And I promise I will share an example from mine too.
Okay.
Um, but we got the honor and privilege of working with Alan Mulally And Alan has his our working together leadership and management system, which he shares with everybody. And he shared with us on a podcast, right? And we walked
Yes.
through it with him. If you haven't seen that podcast, we encourage you to go back and look at it because it is really, really an amazing representation of a very successful leadership and management
Mhm.
system. And you don't want to miss out on that. But Susan, could you share a little bit about your thoughts about Alan's Our Working Together leadership and management system?
Right. Well, I have seen it work over and over again in a big organization, it's at Boeing. So I worked with him on the 777 program. He was the leader of that program, and I wasn't even a manager yet, but I could see how it was working. And it pulled us all together. Here we've got this new airplane program, which is a huge endeavor, years and years endeavor, excuse me, years and years of development, building, testing, all of that. And it really resulted in an amazing airplane that people felt a part of and proud to be a part of. And that's kind of where working together came from, because of the way this leadership and management system uh, worked. It included everybody. One of the things that he has said is that includes the all stakeholders, and he really means that. There's so many tidbits here. I mean, it's really, do listen to the podcast, but here's a really big one. So I can't remember exactly how many people he had reporting to him when he was CEO of the commercial airplanes, but it was probably 15. So all the functions, and it was important to him that there was not, those like layers, because he wanted to hear from every function and directly, and he
Mm-hmm.
wanted them to hear from each other. Having everyone included is a core operating principle for him, and it makes a difference. It totally makes a difference. There's less filtration, from going up, and people, like you said, feel a part of something that's bigger than themselves, and they're really motivated and dedicated to the outcome. And I had the privilege of doing a best practices sharing with the Ford Motor Company when Alan went over there. I saw him and I asked him if he has a PMO, a program management office, and he said, "Well, of course I do. Come over and we'll share best practices." But what we really were sharing was all about the leadership and management system, the working together leadership and management system. And the results that I observed on the 777 program in commercial airplanes was the same in Ford. They embraced it. I think at first they were like, "What's this all about?" but then once they saw the power of it and how the momentum of it started and making successful outcomes, that they were all in, and everybody I talked to at all different levels really valued what the leadership and management system brought to them.
Yeah, great stories and very successful ones too.
Mm-hmm.
And you said something there. You said once they saw the power of it,
Mm-hmm.
which brought up for me, it's ever so important that as a leader or a manager,
Mm-hmm.
when you're implementing something, you need to be all in on it.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot delegate this. You cannot
Right.
say, so say you were working for me. I couldn't say, Susan, here's this really great system. I want to implement it. Go take care of that. Okay. You
Right.
can't do that
No.
because it will not happen. You, the leader, have to live that system that you are implementing for
Right.
everybody else. You have to role model it for them.
And that is what I saw Alan do. He was relentless in it. He believed it. He believes in working together. He believes that everybody's included. And so he is just relentless. very positive, very inclusive, but, nobody gets a pass, most of all him.
And I think that's why we tout Alan as such a great example of a leadership and management system, his Our Working Together leadership and management system. I had another experience I'd like to share.
Yes.
And the reason I wanted you to share Alan's first was because in a different part of Boeing I was working in at the time on the defense side, we were implementing the Baldrige criteria, the Baldrige National Quality Award. And we were implementing that criteria as a way to assess our organization and see where maybe we had some opportunities for improvement. Well, one of the questions at that time that the criteria asked is, what is your leadership system? And we're like what? Our what?
Yeah.
What would one look like if we had one? Right. And so then the leader I was working for at the time, David Spong, said, who you've seen on a lot of our stuff, David said, well, let's go figure out what the requirements of one are and let's create one. And so he created it collaboratively.
Yeah.
But he was all in, just like Alan, all in. And in fact, he borrowed some things from Alan's Our Working Together leadership and management system, which has gone through some evolutions like any system does, right? And he borrowed the idea of the principles and practices, the operating principles and practices for ours, and adapted them. And they've had a conversation about it since, and I know they're both really excited about that being able to share a best practice amongst themselves. Yeah. But so we created the leadership and management system at that point. And then when David moved on to a new organization, he recreated it again there, just like Alan did going from Boeing to Ford.
Right.
So once you as a leader, you leaders listening out there, have a system created, and it's not that hard to do. Once you have that system created with those different elements in it, it's really easy to adapt and take with you to each new organization you would go to. And that way you already have a ready-made system in place. It was amazing to see how, as you said, everybody came together around it. And it's like, oh no, we're doing this. We're in this part. In fact, people started, when they were doing presentations to the leadership team, they would put up the leadership and management system and have an arrow pointing to a certain part of the system and say, today we're talking about this part of the system. And it just caught on. It was so cool. It was so cool.
I love that. Well, people like being part of something that's working, right? It's not just flavor of the month or whatever. A consultant's coming in and says, do this, and it is something that actually works. It's simple. That's the other thing about Alan's Working Together leadership and management system, is that it really is simple. There's a saying, it's simple, but it's not necessarily easy.
Yeah. Deceptively simple.
Yes. And the thing that only makes it not easy is just because the leader must stand by it. There's like, oh, I'm not feeling it like it this week. You just can't do that. You just got to stand by it and just encourage others to keep doing it too.
Yeah. So let's recap for everybody. Your leadership system should be unique to your organization, but it should contain your vision, your mission, your values, your operating principles and practices, your stakeholders, and your processes. And most importantly, as we've just pointed out, the leader has to own it, implement it relentlessly. So our challenge to everybody is go create your own leadership and management system.
Yes.
And if you already have one, review it to make sure it has those elements.
Yes. And if you need help, come to Seasons Leadership. We have we talk about this in our Elemental Leadership course. Take a look at that. You can take a look at our website or give Debbie and I a call. We're happy to help.
You can reach us at www.seasonsleadership.com. And until next time, go do good things.
That's right. Thank you for joining us today. We hope you found this conversation helpful and inspiring.
We invite you to join our community on Kajabi. It's at www.kajabi.com/seasonsleadership. There you will find more resources to help you on your unique leadership journey.
Join us next time for more conversation focused on leadership excellence.